welcome to my report on the solar PV and Powerwall performance at our property for May 2021. Here's the first graph showing the electrical energy coming into the whole property. The total solar production this month was 777 units, a daily average of 25.1 units. In comparison, last year's record May saw a total of 1,031 units being generated at an average of 33.3 per day. 140 grid units were imported, with 24 of these units being drawn at peak rate. The 3rd of May accounted for around half of these peak rate units. The tenant had turned off the storage heaters but came back from work to a cold flat after a miserably cold day. He turned on a 2.5 kilowatt convection heater to warm the room a bit, but then fell asleep and woke the next morning in a very warm room. However, this completely drained the Powerwall and then drew peak rate units from the grid, followed by low rate units through the early hours of the morning. He was most apologetic, despite the financial cost being tiny. It just put too much red on this graph. I've decided to update some of my graphs, and here's the new version, with the columns in this graph being stacked in a different order, with the solar now at the bottom. This makes it easier to compare the solar generation from day to day, as they all start in the same place on the x-axis. 38 units were exported to the grid, which was 4.2% of the total energy coming into the property and 4.9% of the solar energy being produced. The second graph shows where the energy used by the property came from, and these figures come from the Tesla app. Again, I'll be stacking the columns in a different order from now on, with solar on the bottom and grid on the top. 84% of the energy came from solar, with 35.5% coming via the Powerwall. The large grid bars on the 3rd and into the early hours of the 4th have been explained, while the large off-peak pull on the 28th was the only grid energy we needed to put into heating the pool this year, ready for its first major use at half-term by the grandchildren. Most of the pool's heating was by direct sunlight, and use of solar generated electricity, although the opening of the pool is a month later than usual. On the last 3 days of the month, some of the solar went into our electric car, which finally arrived a couple of months later than originally planned on Friday the 28th. The number of solar units going into our car via the Zappi charger comes from the My Energy app and will be stacked at the bottom of the column, with the Tesla app solar figure shown by the pure yellow bar reduced by the same amount. So far we haven't needed to put any grid units into the car, as it arrived well charged, and the sun has been shining to replenish the energy used in the short journeys I've had in the few days of ownership. At the moment the Zappi is in Eco Plus mode, so charging will only use excess solar units after the Powerwall has been filled, but off-peak grid units will need to be fed to the car at some time, which in turn may mean that I'll have to adjust the vertical scale of these first two graphs to accommodate the increased electrical energy use. This graph shows the energy going into and out of the Powerwall each day, as reported by the Tesla app. 89.2% of the energy that went in during the month came back out. Here's the self-power graph, based on figures from the Tesla app, which reported that the proportion of self-power was 87.1%, with almost 50% coming direct from solar. This is the time of year when we hope that we have no need to draw grid energy, though the introduction of the electric car will change things in the future. Here's the solar southwest production over the years since 2012. The monthly figure of 451 units is our worst May out of the 10 years, but 4 other years only beat this by 10 units or less, so it wasn't a very unusual solar May, but it was wet. This is the first time that May's solar output was worse than April, and is around 25% less than last year's record May. The May arithmetic mean is now 492.8 and the median is 496. The first 5 months of the year have produced 1,358 units, which drops 2021 down to 7th out of the 10 years up to this point. Here's the graph showing the daily output of the two solar arrays for the past 365 days. The 28-day moving average lines are both about 5 units below where they were a year ago, highlighting the 250 unit drop in solar generation across the two arrays from last May. Here's a quick look at the energy input for the past 365 days, with the columns restacked as in the first graph, with the solar at the bottom. And here's the daily solar production for the same period. Here's the summary graph for our electricity usage since we moved here in the summer of 2011, month by month. The monthly electricity bill is down, but should have been lower, and the FIT payment for the Southwest generation has seen a small downturn, with May having been worse than April. That's it for this month. I'll leave you with the energy usage graphs from the Tesla app for each day of May, and hope to see you again next month.